Hello, think we're online. I'm starting a bit late today, a little bit under the weather. I don't know how long I can continue today. We'll see. Um, um, I also changed some of the audio settings, so let me know if there are uh, sound drop offs. I noticed that some of my words were cut off in streams. I'm in a noisy environment. I'm trying to cut out the background noise, but I think it's cutting too much of the closed space noise as well. I hope it's going to work out this time. In last stream we did look into more of this farmer custom plugin, more specifically this asset part. Um, then we were investigating whether this collision, when we create one, make an object integrate this, whether this collision object's shape or more specifically the extents could be as big as the object here. Because Godot knows clicking this raise bed corner how big this object is. Here's the bounding box. We had some success detecting the correct measurements. We were gonna apply it to these extents to the values here. We also have to change the station value. Let's just do some arbitrary work here, and then this has to be positioned. So up, try to find the center. Just, so we basically have to calculate these values as well as these values. Now, if I remember it correctly, don't focus on this white box here. That is the interactive area where the collision shape is. As long as that's covering the box, the physical unit. Now, if I remember it correctly, this box was, I think, 40 centimeters. 40 centimeters, or there was 40 to 45, something like. Some of those values were actually okay. When I look at the model in Blender, checking out the dimensions, what these values showed, there was some logic. So I could find some familiarity with numbers. That will definitely make our calculations easy. That being said, this may not be the best thing to do. And there is actually another reason why. Because calculating this bounding box with will require us to detect the proper dimensions of the representation. But in, in essence, it's a very raw approximation. So in the case of a trellis, if you open our trellis model in, you are going to notice that already in Godot we actually have a prefab for this. We created two collision shapes. One is for this sort of this bucket part where we fill the soil, and another collision shape that is as tall as this a backboard. So it makes much more sense to say for this trellis model, is like the front section, sides, the rest of the trellis. Um, that inside this collection, we create our own bounding box, something like, say, cube. Edit sides. I should have scaled in X. Scale Y. Close enough for the point that I'm trying to. So if this is the box that we are trying to create in Godot, or we can actually create this box in Blender. And as long as a box covers the clickable area we want, we could actually label this as collision shape 1, 2. Because one of the plans we have for our custom plugin is to write a Blender import specifically for this project. This isn't going to be a generic Blender importer. Uh, I mean, you may even call it like some export tool, but the reason why I called it importer is because I want to dictate the game object's behavior by populating these um, items here in the outline within Blender. So then whatever I'm typing here, so it's as if like there's going to be meta data here. And once that is imported into Godot, it's going to populate this area. So in a sense, it's going to simplify this guy's job. This is more like a manual case, but a much more precision asset creation could be done. Models are already coming in with properly labeled nodes here. Then imagine when we have, if we have another box like this that's covering this area, those two things could actually be action called as these two things marked interactive. To do that at a later time. I think what I should first do is while I was writing this tool, messed up with the data file so much. Now file the game, some mistakes. Let's do that. This was not working the other way. Yeah, because this is now all. So this is like by default looking under planting, and the section name is hardcode is BGT. This should have fired. These are not also. So yeah, I'll try to fix the way the code is accessing this data file with the proper nested structures, so that we could actually have what we had last week, which was clicking just an item here, viewing it in the scene. At least let's get back to where we were. Listen to some music and let's see. This is the sample level. But more specifically, HUD player operations will have plenty. This will have this is now going to pass. Similarly, HRB. This one. I call it MSH. It's done. Let's close this. We equipment panel. It's sharing a very similar structure. Rules. I don't think I actually bound yeah, I haven't done anything good. Let's skip this for now. So when we click these things, I think it's going to fail at some point. When we click one of these, I think. But at least it's pulling the right data, the right level of data. So now when we are under vegetables, when we click arugula, we gotta see the list of varieties. So when we click tomato, we should see 3 items here. Now when we click one of these, is let's say the super Italian paste, we should see this data. That's where we actually have this hard code. So I'm still under planting panel. That's reassuring. This is by default in the beginning assumes same thing here. But I think what we need to do is the way we have it organized here. Category, group, model, variety. This section is now too arbitrary. Let me say section VGT, which is essentially group. But it's as if I'm selecting a group and I'm showing models. When we click, we expand the vegetable name, so model name, then we get to see its varieties. Because this is planting panel, it is safe to assume that our category is PLN. And then we'll write this for equipment panel, but the category will be different. This is the part that is going. Let's call this. Let's rename this section to group. Display group. Okay, let's find the next one. On group pressed. This is where we are actually binding those three buttons. I can easily go and do that with the two. New group. Group is new display group. Let's relabel this. Um, not going to be PLN. This is category. Minor difference, but it's not going to be. Not see any PLN anymore. Either this. Actually, this is where we might have a problem because data game date. Data is our. Yeah, this is where I actually had a cop out. I want to keep the data for now, at least. The singleton. And say if you have a util singleton, you could access the functions directly, that's fine. You could access the variables too. But with the data, what I wanted to do was like, it's as if just accessing the data singleton and then putting .pln should actually give me this data structure. Say, instead, uh, like this cannot be the data singleton itself. This has to be assigned to a variable in the data singleton. So essentially, this is like, say, I'm just generalizing here. It's the externally loaded JSON data. Okay, so then when you come here, it's how we access it. The JSON data. And then only after this you could type pln this this node. So what I would like to do is something like this. Not possible as far as um, at least with GD script, because I'm assuming if this was C sharp, this one, instead of extending from a node, I could be extending from an array or like list or a different kind of data type that would actually expose this whole thing. I don't think, yeah, I think I already tried this. There's no way to extend from or dictionary. Dictionary would have been fine. just gonna see if there is any way. This is a bit unconventional. If property is self, meaning we just access the data singleton itself, instead of returning all available methods, that it actually returns the game data. Is this even possible? So it holds all this internally, that's fine. But as soon as self is accessed, it actually returns this. So this is then kind of hidden. Because if you don't write this, I don't even know if this is going. If you don't write this, then you have access to everything, but we are bypassing it. It's an interesting. So in other words, how can we even try it? So let's. This is not going to work. You click this or the button that triggers it. Let's pretend this planting panel will open and will be ready. Okay. We are actually interested in outputting this. If we access data itself, which is the singleton, what will this give? Gives two nodes. That fires twice because did I? Okay, I think I'm also using this planting panel script for equipment panel. Okay, that makes sense that it's firing twice. But what is this node? I was assuming it would actually be this. They actually gave us a node, not a dictionary. That's worrisome. So did this even run actually? Did it even run? Oops. It did not run. So here's an interesting Godot part. When you access a singleton itself, okay, you're not accessing anything in the singleton, but just a singleton like this. This looks more like a pointer at this point. It's like a reference. Here's data. It doesn't automatically trigger this. Unless I do something like this, perhaps, which is a self. And when you do this, it is going to be accepting property. Yeah, see, anything in it you'll be able to access. I'm going to ask the same question again. Why not? The words GD script stand dictionary. I asked it a while ago. Actually, before I do that, is there any data type? Is there anything in GD script that extends dictionary? Nothing. I guess the best thing I can do, given the restrictions, is to maybe even relabel data as game data. Okay, because data is sort of generic. Game data. And keep some kind of structure like this, but don't expose it. And I'll have to write some helper functions anyway. I think like game data dot get plant information. That's guess it's time to write that. It's also going to change in a lot of places too, because there's the time functions has to change. This is using data game data. Yeah, I think it. What makes more sense is that I, if I'm going to access a singleton, I should write a get method, and I should pass the date, which is then going to internally find it within game data, but I should not be accessing it. So this is actually a lot of little changes here and there. So let's write that. So let's first fix this. Okay. So get state. You are going to return game data dot date. I think there is a way to make this if property is date. What is the problem? Date isn't declared in because it has to be a string. And this is going to be data date. Okay. Now, if property is, of course, let's not write it with a bunch of ifs. Property. Okay, smarten up. Do this. I think this is easy enough. Okay. And what else? It's because we might have to do some calculation here too. Sometimes. Um, I think at its most basic case here, data is going to give timestamp. And also, now what is the name? Um, I think we could go with this PLN for now. It's kind of odd, but it is what it is. And here's another piece of data. So when this is ready, this should be loaded into something here. That something will be because it actually comprises everything, both planting and equipment, and there will be miscellaneous too. So I think we call them assets. That's it. So it's as if there's going to be assets here. There is going to be an empty dictionary, and I think here it makes sense that I'm returning data dot assets, and inside this I'm actually I think we can do that. Here uh, you assign everything that is loaded into assets. Similarly, um, I think there was a way to write multiple cases for match. Seek help. A match statement, multiple cases, array pattern. Every set pattern has to be every any one of these is true. So if it's PLN or equipment or in the future miscellaneous, if it's any one of those, it is going to be then those which is the property itself. Are using this. Complaining because yes. So that covers three cases. Save this. Around the game, I bet it's going to freak out. Time function doesn't have the right piece of information. But I think what this is gonna get us. Let's run and then I'll formulate the sentence. Instead of writing it this way, thinking if we can get away with it by writing ELN like this. Because this is kind of a shortcut method for they should return the assets. First, it's gonna give error for the time functions most likely. Get index. First, try this. Still able to access that. That's a bummer. The fact that planting really did not give an error, but it actually gave error here because this model is wrong. We have null here, so that's not cool. So let's not call this. Yeah. Also, this is kind of not what I want to do, Mike. Can't assign. Oh, when we drag the access to dictionary itself, we could write it. Now we also have to write the set. Doesn't exist. Now it has to be like this. Yeah, I guess that's it for this file. And the same kind of problem. This is where you do the timestamp. They should tick a second, which is then current timestamp in utils also has to be done. Okay. Tick, 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 tick. Something is happening, but because we did not write the set, we don't see the passage of time. Set property value. Right now, what are we trying to set? Timestamp. We have the timestamp. So when it's timestamp, we should just write whatever is coming because that's how we structure it. It's timestamp. We are essentially data timestamp is the value itself. We have much more complex cases. We have setting a future date, but I think for now this is going to tick the number here. I was hoping. Oh, actually, that's taken from here. So these two are kind of working synchronously. I think somewhere here I'm also doing the We had that somewhere set. Passing of time is done here in time here. Every time when we set the date, this consolidate date is going to return this dictionary. So then this dictionary could actually overwrite, which was the initial assumption, right? Date was equal to the whole dictionary, whatever. So the whole value is going into data. Date is the value. In most cases, this is going to be a very simple assignment anyway. I mean, you could even do something like this. It's just at the root level, similar here. Date is the property name. You could actually do it like this. And you just take this. That's it. So then similarly, whatever is set, let's do assignment. Let's see if this flies. Date. Date timestamp. Data property. I get index hour. I couldn't find this. Data get date. Date. Should have returned this. As soon as I changed it to much more simple case, let's write it the long way. I don't know why. It seemed logical to me. Okay, so here's the passage of time. The other events are firing too. See the passage of time, the sun, the shadow is moving. So this is not changing the. Actually, no, this did. Yeah, oh, sorry, I was clicking normal, which was already normal. That's like 1 minute. This is 5 minutes or 15. This was 25, I think. Yeah, and then go back to normal because those are signal based things. So I don't really need to, as long as signals are listened at the right. This was odd though, that the way I tried to consolidate it, I couldn't, but nevertheless, this assets, now let's test that. This list is empty, that's not reassuring. Okay, because we are not displaying any group, because we are actually trying to fix the data structure. while I'm thinking. A bit less moody. So when we display the group with our structure here, there you go. This is a big assumption that we are always displaying vegetables. This is now changed. Play group. Essentially, clicking these buttons, where are you? Clicking these buttons is actually changed. So on group pressed, that is good. Display group. Which group are we displaying? It's the key. So we are actually setting the new group name. Okay. Now, I actually kept this as a variable to know parsing, but there is no reason why we pass this group name. Okay. Which will then actually even make this event handler redundant. We may as well just yeah, because we were gonna go and update these buttons anyway, right? So just write this, done. So we're going to pass the group. Cannot do multi-edit. This variable is already passed. Then here you are not used anymore. Is going to get the group name as a string, and you no longer need this. Now, if you want to set that to something, you could actually do it. This group is that group. Okay. Um, Something like group, zero group it is. This is just a redundant thing for now. We know that the category is planting. So here, um, here we have data. So what we need to do is, let me just write the most basic case. We are trying to get the assets. So now we got all the assets. Now we are going to do something like this. Is basically the category itself. Because if I could figure out a way to write this whole planting panel generic enough way, I may make both planting and equipment panel use the same script. Because we are already getting to that area. That the only thing will change is that this node structure will be here, and then their actions will be different. I mean, the parameters that are passed to the same functions will be. Yeah. Let's see. So we have the category, then we have the group which is coming in. Okay. Model is actually we are kind of there, right? And this is going to be not vegetable but model. Do this in 3 places, and this is not going to be data anymore. This is going to be this should be all go away. And this was written generic enough that after model we actually are listing variant or varieties similar enough. Here we are on model, which is so then we'll have I for tomato. This might just work. And invalid get index PL interestingly enough. PLN. Get assets. Oh, I'm automatically getting IC. Yeah, I should have written this as assets, but yeah, because if I actually do it hard coded like this, then I can't make these two use the same, which means this is going to be outputting this. This could this is no harm, but I'll just say this. Do the other one. Okay. And string display group. Group is empty. This is empty. Why are you empty? Oh, like an idiot. Here are the vegetables. Beautiful. So let's go to tomato. 3. Click 1. That's when you need to explain yourself, which actually also needs some information. So now that we have accessed sets, here we do the planting, which is then have category and group. This type is actually, this has become model. Planting to click. Beautiful. Now when we hit buy, it should work just fine if I haven't broken it. Of course I have. Of course that asset no longer exists because I think I'm asking for beans and it should not be beans because there is no such thing under as beans anymore. I think I move them under prefabs. That actually should be called. We do actually have, but even this name is not going to be proper name. Did I write MD5 in it? When we hit the buy button, we should actually detect this name based on where we are. This is an interesting story. So we already have category, right? We are trying to construct something like this. Category model. This should be formatted as such that um, category is category that is defined up there in the beginning. Group is essentially the same thing because when we display a group, we are actually setting the group. Do we know anything about the model? When we expand an item here, it give an error. But when we look under tomato, we are actually doing this expand. We kind of know the model. When we hit this explain yourself, this is where we are going to register the. I may later put all this in a dictionary. It's fine. Explain yourself. As soon as you get the variant, which is name, right? We need to create the MD5 of this variant name being a string. I discovered the other day. Could actually do it. Big. And here we need to know the picked items name, selected item. Only control the click group, the select columns, selected item. Selected item will have text for the first column. This is going to be the model. Then we'll following the structure. This is going to give us the asset ID. Okay. This is the asset ID we want you to preview. If this should exist in assets folder, you're in good shape. What do we have in assets? It's hot, whatever this is default. Hot trouble. Confident this will the workflow that I have constructed will work, but it may fail because I don't have the relevant data. Because I'm still missing those model exports from Blender. So I'm trying to create this, click of a button, but whether this structure is going to be matching this, it says that for this to work, I need to trigger the right asset ID structure here, or this is what I should pretend to do. For arugula, need to be constructing something here. I think that might fail for its own reasons. Yeah. Um, because it's now looking in the hard drive to find GLB. So it tried to put it under protection. It couldn't. It even flicked out here. Yeah. It couldn't load this because that scene with the proper model doesn't exist in. Oh, okay. So I'll refresh my tea and come back. Maybe I'll find one edge case that make this work. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to export something from Blender just for this test case. Okay. In the meantime, did I decide what I would like to do? Not really. So let's see what models we have. We actually have, see, this is all equipment. So what if I duplicate this, okay? And I call this PLN. I think this is the easiest. So call it vegetable, call it tomato. This is the part that I'm not so sure. I'll just duplicate and then rename tomato mountain merit. So this is the path 6 5 something. Um, mountain merit. Just need to can we make this plugin this selectable? It's a label. Oh, it's not exactly. It's not line edit. Um, if I convert this to line edit, it let me do it. Everything will work just fine. Won't be editable, but it will be selectable. Selecting enable. Save. Refresh the plugin. Open again. Thing. So this is it. This now has to be written here. Bingo. Now, if we find this in here, this now going to give an error. Why? Because I wonder if the data is let's see, tomato maturity. Why is this a string? That should have been. Oh, let's see. That would be under widget tomato. So when I do this, it treats as an array. It makes sense because that's the way this is working. And for some reason, it's not taking this as integer. It's taking as a string, even though I actually. I mean, it's a one-off thing. I could fix it in here, but I want to get to the bottom of this. Um, plain text. Yeah, because this was once with. For now, it is a number. It's gonna. Okay, when you do this, what is the visualization giving? Okay, at least it's dropping out the decimals. That's fine. So we could take care of this later. For now, I'm going to set this 75 manually. Fine. To be honest, in Godot right now, it's expecting an array. That's why it's actually so at the very least, this should actually be. Then it's going to fill this part out, and the second will be empty. But I'm hoping it'll actually. Anyway, that's kind of a game design issue, not exactly development issue. But a number is required, so it's. Did I save this? Probably not. Okay. So for the time being, I'll put this 75, 75. This it's a range. Reload. There. The seats number. Seats is null. It's null. Maybe it should be 0 or what this. What's the problem? There's no such thing like this. So then it's like this. If variant seats is not null, otherwise it's 0. There's a lot of things to take care of in that area. Okay, fuck it, it's 300. Fucking 300. Okay. Now when we hit buy, this is going to do what? Figure this out and pass the correct thing into the preview, but from this model, we have not created an asset, which is this guy. Here it is. Biggest button. Click. The model is wrong, naturally. And internally, at some point, that actually has. What be careful is this. This is. I'm guessing that's kind of how I wrote it. At some point, everything will come together, but there's just a lot of assumptions and sort of half-assed done things. So anyway, this now exists under assets right there. Tomato 65 something. Okay, you can close this. Now, I actually this did something. What did it do? It sent this previous signal. Is this? Let's print the asset we are trying to preview. Here this, and it did not attach itself to the that because the preview is kind of confident this works, but I have moved a lot of things around. Let's see. Because this interactive part definitely works. That's why we get to see this preview. Because when you open a model like this, Visual Debug works. This fires stuff. And normally we have preview. Is this preview singleton, which is a scene, which is actually initializing asset we want to preview. Shows. And I think this is what we can do. So right now I'm assuming the preview is in the scene. Let's look at the remote. Here's preview, and here's the asset template, which is okay. This is empty. That's kind of, we actually have a preview instance, but it doesn't have a representation, which makes me think this is what we are trying to preview. This doesn't have a representation. Is correct, but that was the whole point of writing this. It would initialize the model from. Okay, let's get this. Here's models that is injected into. Let's hit this button again. Save, close, run this. So I didn't really have to. I just had to reselect it. Okay, here it is. Yeah, I think I did not save that presentation. If this was a plant model, its origin would start right here. As you can see, that's the origin of this raised bed corner. It's actually snapping to the middle of these possible planting spots. And you can actually plant it in different areas too. Here, you rotate the camera, then you go to this, here this. So in essence, except the models, the wrong representation. Let me rephrase this. I haven't even actually said anything yet, but the assets we want to create with this tool is going to require proper models. That is the missing link. But as soon as we create these assets and they are under asset folder, in the game, we are now able to access those asset files with this tree structure, because this tree structure is defining the way these assets are created. So the access and the creation, as long as they actually have a perfect match, then we will have no problem. Right now, this is going to be assuming that you actually have a regular asset for this variety, for this model, for this group, and for this category. So I have to do a lot of export work from Blend. So many things here. And it's kind of a moving target because when we have a tomato model, let's look under models and for beans. No, not this, the scene. This is created out of the model. This is something I wanted to do with the help of this importer. I want to select um, some of these nodes and put them in groups. That kind of work should be done too. But without waiting for that, I think we could actually create missing assets so that we could start to test more of the game. The next missing link is actually here. Everything works reasonably well within Godot. Basically, this is what Godot asks for. For this combination, here's the file type. Now, imagine that file type is supposed to be displaying this model. So now when I save this, I have to be saving it accordingly. So can I automate that? I think I'm going to investigate something maybe right now and then do the work later. Remind me later. Now I know GLB is binary. Yeah. I have not exported GLTF, which should be a text file. So let's just test it. I think we have tried this. Uh, GLB, right? Let's I'm going to remove this cube for now because it's going to screw up my model. Okay. Select object, the one, export. Actually want to investigate this option. Work models, Mr. Trellis. We're gonna call it uppercase just for the sake of keeping it same place in the tree. Instead of binary, there's embedded and separate, which actually exports textures too. I don't quite want that, but with separate JSON. This JSON part is what I mean. I'm not sure if the JSON part is part of just GLTF. Single file with all data packed in JSON. Less efficient than binary, but easier to edit later. That's what the tooltip says. This actually keeps the JSON separate too, which might be the key for me to write that importer. with all data packed in JSON. Let's try this first. We want to include only the selected objects. We don't want to export the materials. Animations can stay the same way. GLTF trellis. Here comes Mr. Trellis. What happened to you? Trellis, trellis. Here's GLB, the old one. When I double click this, Windows is going to let me preview it. That's beautiful. And you let me do the same thing. Awesome. I don't see any JSON file. But when we go into here and open this, it's actually a text file. See what the tools for GL, okay. Preview and debug GLTF 3D models directly in the editor. Awesome. Sure, why not? Good. And I suppose you have to hit preview. It's reading something right there, GL. Meshes. This is what we need. If we have access to this already in VS Code, is half the problem done. Cube 015 32 vertices. Question though. So these guys are labeled uh, this. Underneath there is cube as the primitive 3D structure, but the node name is different. So meshes are here. But in the scene, are we going to see the trellis? Trellis. Okay. Here it is. Cool. When we select it here, awesome. Forget to. It's awesome. Let's look at file size. Binary is 76 kilobytes. This one is 40% more. And I suppose the third option makes this file um, okay, this outline is for me to select things easily. Here is actually the whole file, right? Okay. Notes, mesh 0. You actually have most likely shitload of nodes here. Here are the meshes. Yeah, you see the numbers here. 15 to 460-ish is the number of nodes. The meshes are 200 lines. Then you have things here called accessors. I have no idea what they are, but vector 3 scalar. Okay, so this is probably some internal thing. We need 3 nodes. 7 here. 6, 13. There should be 10 here. 10. These are hidden. Don't know why. This selects this top part. This doesn't. This selects here. Oh, I think I moved this 002 into here. Yeah. So they initially, yeah, it's actually part of this tree, but I create a collection, and the way Blender organizes this outliner is that so from an organizational standpoint, you actually get to see these taken out of this tree structure. You can easily turn all of them on and off, finding and doing the same thing. That's it. So in essence, the normal looking ones in all collections plus the original tree is 23, or you just count everything under the original 23. So everything checks out. The reason why this is actually important is because this will probably be the basics for writing this bad boy. Because if I could keep metadata information here, which will translate here, if I can read it in VS Code, that means I can actually read it in GDScript too. And then whatever I can do in GDScript, then it will be this. Do something here. Even better, decorate the model. So then the last option here, I think this bin is that buffer part that was uh, I think it puts everything, yeah, everything that could be squeezed. Which might be beneficial because if Godot uses the bin, is the binary, but then I use the JSON file, which is also a separate file. Let's try this too. Selected objects, so everything good, everything. Now this is actually gonna want to overwrite the, so I'll actually do this. Let's call it last, okay, because I want to compare the second GLTF with this third option GLTF. So a lot fewer nodes. Tree structure is more or less the same, but it, like I said, it actually put the buffers in its own thing. There's just a reference thing. So this is how it goes. It's the let's actually pull this aside. This is the second option in the export. This is the third option. The tree structure is the same, with the exception of the file length being drastically different. Also, what is actually quite different is the fact that in this option, the number of nodes is displayed as 0. And it's just trellis 1. Actually, this 0 is just the reference number, I believe. No, that's the number of nodes, that's fine. Kind of acts like the 0, though. Really does, honestly. So find the last children. Yeah. Okay, that's just the length, not the ID. The fact that these two are kind of matching is not the fact that this 23 actually has a matching ID, just the number of children. Now, I was hoping to get some meaningful information here, but I think that is already exported into it. So this is that binary. Okay, not good. Hmm. I thought all this, or all this, was going to be in a JSON file, but I think this is that JSON. I don't see anything that actually has last option. The last option bin, the LTF. So this is basically merging both, which is 122. Oh, this is interesting. So these two, if they are doing the same thing as this one does, this is even less than this one. Thing doesn't add up though. And Godot only recognizes the GLTF, but it knows that the bin file is also referenced. Here's the model. I think this model is missing some information. Where is the bottom part? And also, why is it? Oh, I think that I'm answering my own question. Why is this file size so small? Most likely, did not do this. Let's try this with the third option again. Good. Selected objects, good. 23, this checks out all the information. Study you. This file looks this. If the length is the same, what is the difference? 56. So then these two are now worse than this, better than this. Okay, at least I have the whole model. Something is not adding up. Export this. Third option. This one. Export. Buffer views. Exactly the same. To a certain extent, the fact that both files are the same is reassuring. But if this guy holds the binary, provides the benefit of a JSON file, why do I need to export a JSON file? Binary next to it, altogether, it's worse than this. Actually, that's not. Between the third option and the second option, the only benefit is the binary file is a better option than the second one, but then the first option is, although the file size is the best, I'm thinking, what if I create my the scenes from the GLB model, but I write my business logic on this or this, doesn't matter. But when we export the game, is that even an option actually? Does it automatically ignore the GLB files? Export all resources in the project. I know for a fact it doesn't export JSON yet. Export non-resource files. So basically, whatever is not rendered here is considered non-resource. So which means this is not going to be exported. These two will be exported. Now, I may actually choose not to export them because I'm kind of exporting this anyway by default. They were the curious type. Want to investigate something else. Imagine this is a plant model, and I said I want to put the leaves in a node group called leaf, stems in a different group, and the fruit, the edible part of tomato, maybe its own node group in Godot to minimize human errors, and so that we don't also clutter this text area. Can we write that kind of information as part of the, like when I'm parsing it in this script? Let's look under because I kind of remember seeing something. Godot may ignore it when when it renders. But if the data exists in JSON, I could utilize it to do some serious monkey business. This is scene. I doubt it will be here. Let's update the status message too. It's not exactly what we are doing. We are not utilizing our plugin anymore. We are investigating, investigating metadata. That's what we are after right now. Dimensions. Metadata. Hello. Metadata input. Uh, this is regarding a scene, not exactly no. This, I bet, is relevant here. Maybe not in export, but this is how Blender file knows. Okay, so this is interesting. Let's see if we could actually have something for object here. So what's the difference between this scene render properties and this scene properties? Not look the same, but whatever. Title wise, I mean. Custom properties. What's this? This looks like the last export options. Then you should go ahead and order. So you could track the time. Yeah, I'm now reading it. Yeah. So yeah, this is keeping the last exported options as part of this custom properties. Um, I see. So this is actually keeping information. Here's the property and such. So apparently you could, yeah, you could keep a property name, which is actually this export settings, and the value could be a whole dictionary. That's fine. I think this is helpful, but too limiting because we wouldn't want to type names here, and I don't think there's a humanly feasible way to select things here. Assigning things. So, thank you, but not helpful. World properties. I doubt it. Object properties. Transform. This is good. Relations. Parent. Trellis. I think the fact that I'm clicking this is just a helpful way for Blender to organize it. But when I'm clicking this, I believe I'm essentially clicking this, which is showing the parent trellis. That makes sense. So if I click this guy, he still thinks I'm actually, yeah, because this is still the object itself, highest level thing. But promising so far. I might have to, what is it called? Empty object, create an empty object, and maybe keep my metadata in there, but let's keep investigating. This belongs to a collection, which is here. Instancing. No idea what that's. Motion paths. Visibility is selectable, and this is stuff here. Viewport display. Custom properties. Add. Interesting. To the data block. This board, this lumber. Here's a property. Interesting. This property has the name group. The value will be goofy, sturdy. This is going to be leaves, stems, fruit, that sort of thing. Default value is 1. Don't even know why that's actually important. Okay. Interesting. The fact that this is actually here, now we might have to actually do this one by one, which is, but maybe there's an extension to know what custom properties have been added to the model, and maybe we could assign them. So export. This 1001 is the um I said this third option is sort of Let's do this trellis GLTF. Okay. Include data custom properties. There you go. I should actually check this. Loading export settings, remove corrupt something is always corrupt with this. The fact that you gave me that error and nothing seems to be changed here, but actually this is the one I changed. Actually, here, recompile this. Thank you. This is collection manager scenes. This looks a bit different. Sturdy. There you go. The first node, 101001, is sturdy. Also, because I actually did not select everything. This part is a bit collection manager. Okay, maybe this will get all fixed once I do this. So try this. Sort yourself. Remember. Okay, I think this is where it sort of bailed on me. This. No export. That's good. Compress. Don't really care about this. The processing part. Export. No error. So this scenes name scene notes 23. Okay, this is still good. This extras part kicked in. I don't know why it's now deciding to put Matlib here. It wasn't outputting the collection information. Neither. Oh, because when I chose custom properties, it actually included the scenes custom property, not just the objects. That's kind of a bummer, though. This is the extra information that. But I'm not actually exporting this with the game. This is only going to be there for my plugin because whatever is in GLB, when I export to GLB, I'm going to uncheck that custom properties. That's the whole idea. Because this custom properties is good, but this one is not good. Yes. And when I remove this, I don't think it's going to. Something looks bizarre, but some things are happening, some other things are sturdy. Or particle, object data, geometry data. I think this is also where I might, but this is the underlying geometry. Geometry data. Anything, this is also materials. Materials also have interesting too. Hmm. We talked about having the same albedo color. For example, something that looks gray could be concrete, but you change the roughness and the specularity. Use the same gray for a ceramic surface. So when the reflections are different, you create different materials, but the albedo is the same. So we already have a material maker, which is taking a file, a JSON file, which is essentially an array of hexadecimal values, and creates the most basic material with just the albedo color, um, like this. So if this was gray, you would actually see gray in the Godot interface. Is it's actually a kind of navy blue. But if such properties, if these properties were different, and you actually save this as a separate file, if that information came from Blender, then that would be a game changer too. And this doesn't have any texture. So promising things. Materials could have custom properties. I don't think I'm going to mess with this for now, because whatever material creation I'm doing, it's going to be handled in Godot. But when I export the models, they're already coming in as simple meshes without any extra material assigned to them. So I'm going to be doing them manually. This is the part that is actually assigning the data to editable parts, and the underlying data is actually here. You could also assign. I think the only exception here is whether we ignore certain structure here or not is actually here. It's collection manager. We don't really care about this. We don't care about this either. Basically, this part is the only thing that is different than this part. Both are pretty much the same file. Get the file length. Um, you think here from 8 to 69, 60 lines more, add 60, this should be 1945-ish. And yeah, we are there. So that's the only difference. I can live with that. But the benefit here is this. For this node, this would normally be the first node. It actually has normally mesh ID 0. Same file, same identity, trellis 1001. Everything else is the same translation. This is the part that's actually added right before here. Means when we read this file, this is going to be the group name in Godot. Now let's look in Blender whether we could find more useful thing. Properties. Property chart. Edit arbitrary selected properties for objects sequence strips of the same type. Interesting. Enable it. View 3D sidebar item tab. here. Let's expand you a bit. Here is 1001. Properties presets. Here this. Use auto smooth. So we know this object has group sturdy. There, can we actually data use auto smooth? Add properties preset name group the thing. So when I choose this, use group, but will you give me a place where I type the value? Say if this leaf or stem. Only enables this as if okay. I'm kind of guessing here like data, data, data dot use auto smooth. So this is here. And under group I don't set. Preferences this. Can we get documentation? Properties of selected object. I don't want to mess with the with this because that's important. Of the shit I don't understand. So if I say data bar missing, the fact that it actually put this here. Use auto smooth. Properties of objects in the context separated by spaces. Its value though is kind of on here. It doesn't. It says if this use auto smooth is an internal Blender thing, that maybe it's actually this is the one. No, I think the internal name for this is auto smooth. So normals, auto smooth. So and that's actually cube 3. Interesting, because this is data. Okay, something is clicking. It always okay. So here's kind of editable object itself, and here's the underlying data as if it's the geometry. So this is the mesh itself, but this is kind of the object we see in the hierarchy. It's like entity, and here's the underlying data. So that's what it is. So then it actually considers this whole thing as data, and whether this, yeah, this thing being the whole data. That's why you have data that use auto smooth, which actually is like, okay, is this even true or false? That's it. So if this custom property is the name that I have, it should not be kubar, which should be group. Then it won't say missing at some point, I'm hoping. Of course, I thought, oh, let's see. Okay, I edit the data to this, to the object itself. But this is checking at the data level. This should not be here. Can I even move this to copy data path? Okay, it wasn't too hard to make. Let's go to underline data here. This, edit, group sturdy, still sturdy. Okay. Are you still missing? Why are you missing? Group, custom properties. Maybe this should also be data.prop.group. Okay, this is now like I don't know how internally things are kept in Blender, because this use auto smooth is right click, because I'm pretty sure if we looked at the code behind this, there will be a variable boolean is either false or true, and that this custom properties that it actually has to be first accessed by something props, then it'll actually recognize our data. This is a guesswork at this point. Because when I make the changes here, it's clearly trying to do something. Data use auto smooth. Sort of scripting, like the reference, the internal reference. This is the object data use. I need to access the document. Should be in org. somewhere. Port on API reference. Need the whole thing. Let's first try this. Use smooth to. Yep, there it is. Now we have to find data. Thank you, sir. Data. Property chart. Data. This is the one. Data. Access to Blender's internal data.scenes keys. Data.file path. So this seems like it's something that exists. Data.file path. Do you even give that? Okay, it's missing. Custom data. Custom data. Custom data. Could it be custom data? Group. Missing. Well, at least we know it's not missing. See, when I choose this, see, it's working in tandem. Beautiful. Which means if I'm able to read this area, it's going to say sturdy. Now, why is this important? Because then I could save this as a preset. Then I could select multiple things here and then just assign a preset. I could do this in multiple files. Then we're in good shape. See, even here is important. And the fact that this actually shows missing, but if I could actually put a text box here, something like this, that's sort of editable, then I don't need to type it here. I can just like, here's the this is the layout which is given by this preset, and I will just type it. It could even be a drop down, mind you. How can I get the custom properties? Let's actually say custom properties. Looking in the props property group struct. Property definition. Custom properties can be added. Property group. Props, string property. Props. We've tried props. Props. Property definition. Data that use. So data is actually data. That is the part of look for data. Mesh. Because my thing is part of a mesh. Custom data. Data underscore. Is there even a method like custom data maybe get something? I typed like group. Even a data thing here. Data access. Different though. We looked into this. Patient data. Because I actually looked into what auto use auto smooth. Use auto smooth. This part of mesh. API types mesh. Mesh plus animate attributes geometry. But this is still not the underlying data, right? It's just the mesh's property. Like this. Okay, this is just a direct command to the mesh itself. But somewhere internally, it's kept as data.useAutoSmooth, which makes me think it's part of the application data. There has to be some gets those. Okay, I have a general question though. Documentation kind of question. Say utilities. Okay, I actually get to read more. It's fine. So I mean, methods. Would have been nice to separate them as like properties, methods, two separate sections because everything that I've seen so far look like properties, but here are methods. However, the way this thing works is that there is actually something running here, property chart, which is past this argument, which is space separated. which then looks for an internal name like data. That's so far so good. We are now only interested in this guy, group. When you edit soon, 10 more minutes roughly, and then I'll be signing off. Right click, area. Edit, sturdy, right click. Copy data path. Paste that data path here. Interesting. Now, this might work. Same. Data, custom. Scene. Not that, that is, the fuck is the scene? Okay, this. Didn't we have this here? Export. This. Okay, do this. Okay, this. Here's the name, here's the value. Right click, right click, right. Why are you doing that? Right click, onset. Right click, nothing. Default value. Can you just give the, okay, see, this is, okay, right click, copy data path. This is what I'm trying to. GLTF to export settings. That's fine. Can you actually get this exposed here? That you can. Copy properties from active selected. Open a path in a file. Let's simplify this. Another suggestion. Data, data use, data. What if we say this data is this, it's pulling its value. Data that use auto smooth, it only picks its title, I think, the last piece, and it finds the value. So what is this? Which is this? Then it actually puts the group. Okay. Because if you repeat this structure, going to put another one. That's good. Which means unit that will be used to display temperature values. Kelvin. Right click. Copy data path. Data unit settings. Temperature unit. Missing because it's part of unit, not a data. What if you do it this way? Unit settings. It's part of unit. It's part of scene. Scene. Unit settings. Temperature unit. Let's investigate this part. If I could find something like this, Blender's structure, unit settings, temperature unit, part of unit settings, part of types. Is it just types? Could it just be type? The problem is, I don't quite know internally how these things are. Like say, this is only an enum. This is assigned to a property. The scene. Scene units. Scene unit settings. Okay, what if a scene uses audio or not? Can we even do that? Is it like this? Scene use audio. Is it uppercase? Scene. Scene data block consisting in objects. I think I'm gonna sign off, but there is something very exciting about this custom uh, properties. This may be the key to creating so many objects in Go. Might investigate this tomorrow, but for the time being, unlikely that I'll be streaming more. Never know. But for now, a good night.